What is going on, YouTube? Welcome to yet another episode of the MMA show. Thank you guys for tuning in once again. I really appreciate all of you that are out there watching. Thank you. Hope you're having a fantastic start of your week. Monday morning, beautiful Monday morning. As always, don't forget, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave me a comment. Let me know how you guys are feeling today. And yeah, man, we can go ahead and get started. We did have a few slow weeks in the UFC. We did have a couple of fight nights. We had a Thug Rose versus Tracy Cortez, which was actually a pretty good fight night, honestly. I watched it and I was okay, good. It was in Denver, Colorado, so shout out. And then we had another fight night this past weekend. However, I did not pay much attention to that one because I thought obviously the more popular names that were fighting this Saturday was Jake Paul versus Mike Perry. So I was like, well, I'm very intrigued by that fight. I thought that Mike Perry was probably going to be Jake Paul's toughest match yet, not counting really Tommy Fury, which he lost. But I was really like, okay, well, Mike Perry is a guy that does not really fit the criteria for all the other Jake Paul fights that he's had. Meaning he's not a little bit older and inactive, right? He's not retired. He was currently a UFC alumni, a veteran, but he wasn't really like retired, if I want to say. And he was still in his prime. I think that's the biggest one that a lot of people don't see. And, when I talk about these UFC guys that Jake Paul fought, like Nate Diaz, right? Tyron Woodley, right? I don't mean it in a disrespectful way that they are no longer good, because they're probably still fuck up your average human. But I do feel that they are obviously out of their prime, right? I mean, Anderson Silva, Ben Askren, you name him, all the UFC guys that he has fought, they have been out of their prime. And I think that's the nicest way of putting it. Like they're not sucked, they're not washed, right? A lot of people say they're washed up UFC fighters. I don't think they're washed. Like I said, they're just out of their prime. And also, you got to put respect on their name, bro, because you're talking about former UFC champions, fucking legends of the sport. So you got to put some respect on them. So I think the nice way to say is they're no longer in their prime, right? Mike Perry did not fit that criteria. Mike Perry is 32 years old. He's still in his prime, and he was over at Bare Knuckle fucking up legends, right? And part of me was like, okay, Bare Knuckle, boxing, very similar sport. Not the same, right? Because for a lot of people coming from UFC to boxing, it might take some time to adjust. But for Mike Perry, he was doing bare knuckle, which is straight up boxing, right? It's just not with gloves. It is different, though. It is a little bit different. I feel like bare knuckle is still missing some of that boxing essence, some of that, like, the technique, the sweet science, as people call it, right? The finding the range, where to step and kind of what to do with your feet and stuff like that. Bare knuckle is a lot of, I think, less skillful, still dangerous guys. They could fuck you up, and obviously you get all cut up and shit. But it's just different, bro. It's two completely different sports. Very similar, though. Very similar. However, I really did not think I was completely surprised when I saw Jake Paul not really having any issue with Mike Perry. I mean, he got hit a few times, but other than that, it was a pretty easy fight. The thing that he struggled with the most was not being able to put him out earlier. I think, he called that for a first round KO, which he dropped him in the first round. He dropped him in the second round. So most people quit right there. If Jake Paul was fighting any other dude that wasn't Mike Perry, that fight is over round 2, right? But because he's Mike Perry and because he's tough, he's able to come back. Even though, I don't know, man, I don't know why Mike Perry wouldn't train a little more on certain aspects on his game. And we did see a lot of his flaws there. He had no technique whatsoever. He had no defense whatsoever. He was also just a complete still not moving target. I think if you would have watched some of those Mike Tyson old clips, where he's kind of like bobbing and weaving, that's what you have to do versus a guy like Jake Paul. Because Jake Paul is a hard hitter, bro. However, he's a hard hitter, but I think some of his chin is yet to be tested. So if somebody can just find the shot. I think we're gonna see Jake Paul get knocked out if somebody just finds a shot. Either way, I'm not gonna talk about that. But sorry, I was going off on a little. But one thing that Mike Perry does fit the criteria with every other Jake Paul fight, which is something that I'm still gonna hold against Jake Paul. I'm out of the Jake Paul like is just a YouTuber train. Like I don't think so, right? He is a legitimate fighter, legitimate boxer that has been in several legitimate professional boxing fights. And I don't care if you like him or not. I don't really like a lot of the things he says and some of his ideas and behaviors, but it is what it is. I respect him as a fighter, which I think is the most important thing. However, one thing that I still hold against him is that most of his biggest fights that he's had, all of these guys, I know he had a few fights with a couple of no-name people. I don't know their records, but the main thing I hold against Jake Paul right now is that still all your opponents have little to no boxing background. Now, yeah, they have background in UFC and bare knuckle, or MMA. So I think you have to take that into consideration, right? When you kind of talk about this. I'm not saying he's not legit. I'm not saying he's not a pro boxer. Again, we're past that. We're completely past that. And if you're still in that train of like, oh, just a YouTuber, I think you're just hating. And honestly, like I said, I don't like the guy that much, like personality wise, but goddamn, he's getting better. Goddamn, he's getting better. I mean, and talk about Mike Perry, all he was basically a sparring partner that night for Jake Paul. Jake Paul really showcased nice skill. He showcased patience. Even though he had Mike Perry rocked a couple of times, he didn't rush in for the kill. And I think that's huge. I think that's a huge, huge attribute to have when you're a boxer or a fighter of any kind. He showed that. And then he also showed just amazing footwork and range. I think he was able to find Mike Perry's chin with the jab super easy, because he had that range on lock. So that was cool. That was goo. Oh my God. That was cool. And then he has speed. I mean, Mike Perry he's not a big dude. And Jake Paul is actually a bigger dude. I'll talk about the weight difference here in a second too. But Jake Paul had speed, man. He looked pretty damn fast for how heavy he is, right? And talking about the weight, another thing that people can knock him on is, oh, well, he was heavier than Mike Perry. I think by like 30 pounds or something. I heard that Mike Perry barely made 200 pounds and Jake Paul was a little bit over 200 pounds, but the day of the fight, he probably weighed like 230. However, Jake Paul he carried some of that speed, so that's great. But however, you cannot say that he won because of weight advantage, because there was really not any clinching on the fight. He did not clinch. He could have easily clinched and hang on him, and wear him out. And then you could say, well, Jake Paul had a weight advantage, right? Which is kind of what we see sometimes when you see some of the Tyson Fury fights that he's had. He kind of uses his weight to his advantage. He clinches, he hangs on you, he lets you carry his weight, and you get fatigued, right? And then he cracks you. So that's something that he could have done, right? And it probably would make the fight a little bit easier. Obviously, a little bit more boring of a fight, more clinching, obviously. But he didn't. He went straight to punching, straight to trying to put Mike Perry out of there early, which is honestly what I like most about Jake Paul, that he at least tries to do that. Some of the Jake Paul flaws that we saw was definitely his cardio. I think his cardio is still a little bit of an issue, especially at that bigger weight class. And yeah, he was getting ready for Mike Tyson, so he put on a lot of weight. But even before, I mean, he didn't have that much of a cardio. I mean, he did go the distance with a bunch of people, but I don't know. I feel like he does pretty good job at like selecting when to use his cardio. So he starts out fast, and then middle of the fight he's always a little bit slower, and then towards the end, final rounds he kind of picks it up a bit more. So that's smart, strategic. So that's good. But there's guys out there, that could potentially fucking go all rounds. Another thing I didn't like, by the way, was that you're doing 2 minute, eight rounds. I don't know if they were 2 minutes, but they were 8 rounds. Like, bro, both of you are profesh. Like, we're not amateurs anymore. You're not fighting fucking Ben Askren anymore, bro. Like, do 10 rounds. Don't be a pussy. Look at Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal. They went 10 rounds. It was good. I forget how many minutes it was, though, because I know the fight before the women's. I know that was 2-minute rounds, but I don't know if Jake Paul's was 2 or 3 minutes or what. But it was 8 rounds whatsoever. But hey, man, if you want to go by boxing rules, then go by the full boxing rules. Go to 10 rounds. Who cares? But again, I think that plays a little bit of an advantage because it's Jake Paul's promotion, so he kind of sets the rules. A little bit kind of like Mayweather, right? Mayweather used to do that back then with the weights and all of that, with the dehydration clause. And Jake Paul does that, I think, with the rounds because he knows his cardio is not that good. So later rounds, he's going to have a little bit of an issue. So making the fight shorter is to his advantage. But yeah, man, I mean, and then to wrap this up, he then calls out, he wins the fight, he gets on the mic, he calls out Mike Tyson, which was expected because he already had a fight booked. But then this motherfucker has the audacity to call out Alex Poatan Pereira. And I don't want to say anything, but I kind of guessed it. Again, I'm not going to like brag or anything. I don't have proof. I didn't upload it or something, but I kind of, right as I was watching the fight and before the fight, I was like, you know who would be a great opponent? Alex Pereira. And I'll tell you why I thought of this. I thought of this because maybe like a year ago, I was under the impression that a great opponent would be Israel Adesanya for Jake Paul, right? So now it makes sense that if Izzy was a possibility, Alex would be one. So I don't know why I kind of thought of that, but it just kind of came in and then left. So I didn't do a video on it or anything, but he gets on the mic and he calls out Alex Pereira. And which is fucking crazy is that they FaceTime right there and then. Like, who the fuck does that? Which makes me think maybe it was a little planned, premeditated, which is okay. It's whatever. But still, that's a crazy call out to have, man. Especially because Alex, bro, as we know, looks unstoppable right now in the UFC. And not only that, but he also has kickboxing background. He was one of the best kickboxers in the world, primarily with just striking, which is a lot of boxing, you know? So I don't know, bro. And then, like I just said, if somebody's going to taste Jake Paul's chin, it's going to be Alex. I mean, if Alex touches you, you go down, right? So that'll be lit. I don't know, size-wise, I don't know how they compare. I have to see them next to each other, but Alex just seems massive. I don't think Jake Paul is that tall as Alex, but Jake Paul is definitely thick, you know? But I don't know. I mean, I guess, see, the thing about Jake Paul that I like too, I promise I'll wrap this whole Jake Paul thing up and then I'll move into UFC, I promise. I'm so sorry. But the thing that I like about Jake Paul right now is that he's in like a I don't give a fuck stage. He's like, sure, whatever, you know. He gets on the mic, he calls out, obviously, Conor, Alex, you know, and he even calls out, like, Mike Perry for a rematch in UFC or MMA, I mean. And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever, I'll do it. You know what I mean? Like, Ariel's throwing some possibilities at him with the mic, and Jake Paul is just like, yeah, sure, I'll do whatever, man, I'm down. That's what I kind of like right now, especially because if we look at other people, not naming names, Michael Chandler, they have a big money fight booked. They don't want to do anything. They want to just chill until that fight, right? Jake Paul had the Mike Tyson fight in the bag with Netflix. It probably is going to be the biggest pay-per-view ever, right? So, you know, any other guy would say, you know what, I'm going to chill, I'm going to wait, and then I'm going to see what happens, and then I'm going to fight Mike Tyson that day, right? So he had 6 months to just chill, about, 4 or 5 months, I guess, to just chill. But he didn't do that. He fought Mike Perry, which was not only crazy, but also unpredictable. He got past that. And then he gets on the mic and he's calling all these people out. And he's also calling for a rematch from Mike Perry in MMA. So, I mean, if you don't like that, if you don't respect the guy for that, I mean, come on, bro. It's just fun. If Jake Paul was any other guy, if he wasn't a YouTuber that started the way he did, if he was just going through the normal rankings, let's say in the UFC, right now he would be like, top 15. And if he had that mentality, I mean, he would be a superstar in the UFC and he would be a respected combat artist or what, I don't know how the fuck you call him. One thing I did see a funny meme is that there was like a line of cocaine in Jake Paul's dressing room or his green room or whatever they call it. I don't know if that's true. I do see a lot of that shit with Jake Paul, but who knows? But yeah, man, I hope that he fights Alex. I mean, that's a fight that I want to see, but also I think right now we could get anything from Jake Paul. I think if the right now is the opportunity for, if the right fighter with the right certain amount of following calls him out, you can get a big payday. Like, whoever's out there that is former UFC or former, BKFC, Bellator, whoever, like Luke Rocco, like somebody like that, that has a certain amount of following. I feel like right now it's a great time to call out Jake Paul. He's taking on these challenges and he doesn't care, which, again, I like to see it, man. I like to see it. But yeah, moving on. Let me take a sip of coffee real quick, man. I've just been talking for a while about Jake Paul. I hate this. Moving on, we do have UFC 304 coming up this Saturday, being headlined then none other Leon Rocky Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. It should be a pretty good fight. We'll talk about the main event here in a sec. But before, we do have a lot of good fights. Well, we have Molly Meatball coming back. I hope she gets this dub. She had a lot of hype, along with Patty Pimblett. They were both kind of coming up equally, but then, and they were homies as well, But then Molly kind of had 2 losses in a row, so that kind of slowed down a bit. But then she's coming off of a win, so I do hope that she's able to get past Bruna Brazil and continue on her path. Her career. So yeah, good luck to Molly. The next kind of good fight we have Arnold Allen. Okay, yeah, so then we have Bobby Green versus Patty the Batty Pimblett. This should be a fight of the night contender, I think. This should be a fight that, if it goes the distance, we are going to see blood and violence. Obviously, Patty Pimblett is a really good striker, but a little bit reckless. He kind of rushes for the kill, which, again, if you're talking about going back to what I was saying earlier, a good trait to have as a fighter is being patient. So, say what you want about Patty, but he wins fights. He has crazy striking. However, what really makes Patty tick is his jiu-jitsu, is his grappling abilities. He has crazy submissions that he's thrown all the time. Flying triangles and all this shit. So it should be pretty interesting. He is coming off of a win against Tony Ferguson, which that win didn't really do much for him, in my opinion. You beat Tony Ferguson that's way out of his prime and competing when he probably shouldn't be competing. So, it is what it is. But other than that, completely undefeated in the UFC, Patty Pimblett. So that's really, really fucking good for him. I don't know why his popularity train kind of died really fast. If you kind of see that, I mean, I don't know. It was a weird thing to see. He was really popping off. Maybe because, he had those couple of close fights that he was saying that he dominated, and we all saw there was not domination. And then fighting someone like, like I said, someone like Tony Ferguson doesn't really help. So, hopefully, if he's able to get past Bobby Green with something spectacular, I think he's able to regain some of that hype back. And yeah, man. And then now, I believe King, I think he changed his name, by the way. He's no longer Bobby King Green. Now he's just King Green, which, okay, whatever. I'm a fan of Bobby, man. I'm a fan of King, man. He's a cool cat, and he's also got great striking. Not a lot of grappling though. So that's where the fight could be decided. If it goes down to the ground and Patty's able to get a hold of one of his limbs, that could be end of the night for King Green. King Green, not the best of the records out there. He does have a few losses. He lost to Islam Makhachev, obviously. I think he lost to... who he lost to? Oh, Drew Dober has a few losses, but he is coming off of a win off of UFC 300 against Jim Miller. That was a pretty good fight. So, yeah, man, I mean, I hate to say this, but I do think Paddy Pimblett has his fight in the bag. I do think that he's on a path. He is on a, legacy path, and Bobby Green is just another stepping stone for him, which is crazy to say because Bobby is such a good fighter, such a entertaining dude, but just never really was able to grasp the top of the division. He's been there in the middle for a long, long time. Just never fully been able to grasp. Now, I love Bobby. He's a great fighter, and if you listen to his interview in the Joe Rogan podcast, he has a crazy backstory, which is great. He grew up, pretty much with nothing. He's poor. He went to jail. So it's a crazy story, man. So you would love to see a guy like that get a huge win, especially against Paddy Pimblett. That would be really amazing. But yeah, he is ranked 15. So this is the opportunity for Paddy to go in there and get now finally into the top 15 situation, right? Which, if you see Paddy's trajectory, if you compare it to someone like, I don't know, like Islam Makhachev or like Alex Pereira, like these guys really got rushed to the top, right? Versus you see someone like Paddy, like Sean O'Malley, like they really took their time with them. They took their time. They fought unranked for a while, but their popularity kept increasing. They're so similar in that aspect. Both him and Sean O'Malley. And look where Sean is now. So Sean O'Malley, I think it's the perfect experiment from the UFC to say this is how we can literally grab a teenager, literally a young dude, and work him and mold them all the way up to a champion. And it worked out great, And I'm not saying that Paddy is just like that because Paddy did compete prior to the UFC and he was Cage Warriors champion over there in Europe. But he was still kind of young coming into the UFC, this young buck. And he just goes on a tear and is currently undefeated. So again, it's currently working, putting him the right opponents at the right time. And now is where it starts getting serious. Now is where we're like, okay, we helped you long enough and, within the unranked people. Now it's time to show us what you got, right? And another thing that he says, which is super smart, which was very similar to what Sugar was saying, is that you have to kind of take a step back and look at the broader picture and also look at the legality of things, which is what people don't like. It's boring, but look at their contracts, right? When they start in the UFC, they get pretty much like I would call it like a base salary contract, I would imagine. So they were saying, why would I risk my record and my health on fighting someone way higher than me just because I'm popular, while I'm also having this base level contract, right? So you're asking me to take more risk for not more money, right? And also both Paddy and Sean O'Malley also massive popularity, so they have other sources of income. So they really have all the patience in the world, versus someone that's coming up that may not have those means of income. They might not be Twitch streamers, they might not have crazy brand deals all over the world because they're superstars and they have bills to pay and they're on a basic UFC contract. They are the ones that were like, oh no, just give me someone on the top. I'll get there eventually. And that could be a downfall. That could be a super issue. So they just played it smart. They played the long run. And I think Paddy, if he's able to get past Bobby Green, I think he's now off to the races. Now he'll be ranked probably 15th. And then now we can see him now get some more of these bigger fights at lightweight, which is a crazy division, by the way. So I'm excited for some of those potential matchups that we have there for him. I mean, we have Jalen Turner, who also fought Bobby Green. We have Dan Hooker, will probably be a great fight for like a Europe or Australia card at some point. That'll be great. We have Benoit Saint-Denis, who's coming up with a loss against Dustin Poirier, but he's still there ranked in the top 15. So a lot of exciting matchups for Bobby there in the lower tier of the division, but ranked guys. So you're talking, anywhere from like 8, 9 to 15. Should be pretty good to witness and see. But yeah, man, I guess getting more into the technical stuff, I really do think Bobby just has less ways to win than Patty. This is how I always make some predictions. I say, well, who has the more tools to win? Who has the more chances to win, right? And I think Patty is that dude. I think he has good striking, work on the defense, but good striking, hits hard, hits super hard. And he has obviously amazing grappling. So if it goes down to the ground, it's gonna be pretty much over. That's his specialty. So yeah, I guess official prediction I'll say is Patty Pimblett by submission, probably like an armbar or like a triangle. I'm calling it. Next up, we do have a big boy heavyweight clash between Tom Aspinall, who is the interim heavyweight champ, versus Curtis Blades. This fight never really made a lot of sense to me, and I guess I'm not the only one. I do see other people talking about this fight and how it's kind of bullshit that you're making Tom Aspinall defend his interim title. And I forget who it was. It was either John Anik or Chael Sonnen or somebody said, if you're making him defend his interim title, to me, that's the undisputed. Like if he defends that, that's the undisputed, right? Which I think is what a lot of people think. I think if you look at the heavyweight division, you obviously have John Jones as the champ, who is injured, so can't fight. But because the UFC wanted him to have that Stipe fight, they didn't strip him of the title. They just gave Tom the interim. And because of the injury and how long it takes, they just needed to keep Tom active, so they gave him Curtis Blades. So it's a little bit of an awkward situation, especially because that fight is this Saturday, okay? We still have no news, no date for John Jones versus Stipe. That is an issue. That is an issue because the timing is off. What if John Jones is off for another 6 months? Like, what is Tom Aspinall going to do? Defend his title again, the interim title again in a couple of more months if he's able to get past Curtis Blades, let's say, first round knockout? What now? He fights again in another 4 months? Defends his interim title again? That just doesn't make more sense to me. So if Tom Aspinall is able to get past Curtis Blades, he needs to fight either John Jones, or they either need to strip John Jones off the title, which is kind of crazy that I'm saying this, especially because I'm the biggest John Jones fan. I think a lot of people are, him being the GOAT. But it's just what's fair. At one point you gotta say, like, what's fair here, right? Do you keep this young buck and Tom Aspinall waiting and you make him defend his interim title again? Or do you, which is also causing a huge bottleneck on the division, or do you just let the division go, man? Let it flourish. Let it, unfold, right? It's been stuck because of John Jones and Stipe. And at this point, this is what I hate about anticipation with fights. At this point, same like the Chandler and Conor fight. At this point, I don't give a fuck. Like, at this point, I don't want to see that fight anymore. You know what I'm saying? Move on. Now, that's just me, though. A lot of people might still want to do it, and the hype is probably still there. And I think whoever Conor fights, he could fight Hasbulla and probably still sell massive pay-per-views. But my interest is just not there anymore. You know what I mean? Same with the John Jones and Stipe fight. Like, okay, both guys older, both guys haven't fought in forever. It's just not going to be a great product, right? Obviously, they want it because of the payday. That's mainly the only thing. I'm assuming they are waiting. They're agreeing to do that. But I mean, at some point, bro, you gotta take example for some of these other champions, which I think did a great job, like Judy Prohaska, like Jamal Hill, who get injured, right? They know they're going to be out for a little while. So what do? Strip me of the title. I don't want to keep the division whole in. Strip me of the title and, give it to the young buck that's coming up, which Again, I think it's a very good and moral thing to do. Which also, if you were to make still the John Jones versus Stipe fight, but it's not for the belt, I think that's okay. I mean, I think that's something that, or shit, make it for the BMF belt. That kind of matches too. But I think that that's something that people would like to see, even if it's not for a belt, right? Again, but as the longer it goes on, the more interest people lose. I don't know everybody, but myself, the more interest I lose. So it is kind of tough to see, man. It's tough to see Tom Aspinall be put in this awkward position where he cannot definitively say that he is the champ. He still has to say the interim part first, which sucks and which honestly is unfair. But yeah, talking about the fight now strategically, Curtis Blades is coming off of a win versus Thomas Almeida. But however, he did lose versus Pavlovich. And he also lost. He did win against Aspinall. Oh yeah, I forgot this is a rematch. It is a rematch because the first fight that they had, it was kind of unfolding, and I think it was in the first round. Yeah, first round. Tom Aspinall blew out his knee. So freak accident, couldn't continue. So they give Curtis Blades the win. They did put it here as a KO, TKO, which kind of unfortunate that you have this one as a TKO. But, it is what it is. Other than that, my boy Curtis Blades has been undefeated all the way back to 2021 where he fought Derek Lewis. But, we all know Derek Lewis is a fucking beast. But, yeah, other than that, my boy has been on a run up until he got to Pavlovich. So, yeah, I do think that, Curtis Blades is a really skillful fighter, and he has also good wrestling. But Curtis Blades is a guy that reminds me a little bit of like a Cyril Gane, which he's a little bit lighter. He's got more movement. He hits hard. He has a bunch of KOs in his career. However, I do think that Tom Aspinall takes this dub. I do think that Tom Aspinall, again, if you look at ways of how can people win the fight, Tom Aspinall hits fucking hard. And he also has great jiu-jitsu because he has been training jiu-jitsu since he was a little boy because his dad owned a jiu-jitsu school in England where they live. So he is a black belt. I think he's black belt. I'm not sure, but I think he's pretty skilled in jiu-jitsu. So if the fight goes to the ground, Tom Aspinall could end it there. And from what we saw with the Pavlovich fight with Tom Aspinall, I mean, the dude has heart. The dude has a lot of heart, and he fights smart. He's not necessarily. He has caution, right? He's not really throwing caution to the wind. He fights smart. He waits for the right moment, and he hits you and you go down. Like that's really his style of fighting. I highly doubt this fight is going to decision. I do think that. I guess my official prediction would be that Tom Aspinall will TKO Curtis Blades in the second round. Yes, that's my official prediction. Next, we do have the main event of the evening, which we're talking now about Leon Rocky Edwards versus Belal Muhammad. This is a fight that a lot of people mocked. A lot of people make fun of Belal Muhammad for being a boring fighter, for having no highlights, for not being able to finish fights. Pretty much all of his fights are by decision or by split decision. So, he gets a lot of hate for that. And he gets a lot of hate for just not playing this game that a lot of people play. He doesn't talk all that shit. He's not popular outside of the UFC. He doesn't have like a massive following like these other people do. However, that doesn't really matter. Well, it does, but it doesn't, right? It does in the sense that if you keep winning, that is going to help you. If you keep winning and you're popular, you have a great following, it's going to help you get more money and get more eyeballs and get more opportunities. But if you lose, that's where people disregard you completely. Because look, if, for example, and again, going back to some of these other examples, like if Sean O'Malley, look at Sean O'Malley is the perfect example. He lost to Chito. It was a freak accident again, but it was a loss. But his hype train didn't really dies down right now. If Bilal loses, it doesn't help him at all because he has no hype train. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it was a weak point. I'm sorry. Both guys have very similar records. Look at this. Leon is 22-3-0. Bilal is 23-3-0. So that is really, really interesting to see. Both guys coming off of wins. Leon obviously coming off of the defeating Kamaru Usman and then defeating Colby Covington. And then this is also a rematch, by the way, because they did fight once and they were not able to finish the fight because of an eye poke. Nasty, nasty eye poke where Leon's thumb, I think, went fully in, Bilal's eye. So I hate to see that, but that was that was like 2021, I want to say. I'm not sure. But either way, both guys, had some unfinished business. So it's nice that we are finally getting the part 2. Leon, man. I was a guy that talked a little shit on Leon back in the day. When he won the title against Kamaru, knocking him out, was probably one of the best knockouts ever. Well, not counting now that Max Holloway got his knockout, I will put that above Leon. However, the way he won that fight, I was like, well, he caught him, but he was losing the fight. He was down 4 rounds, right? But then homie comes back and dominates. And then homie comes back and dominates Colby Covington, right? Which is not easy to do. Not easy to dominate Kamaru and Colby, which those two also had their wars of their own, if you remember. So not easy thing to do. And he's a guy, man, that is just by the fucking book. By the book. Talk about executing perfectly. Talk about sticking to a game plan and not changing it mid-fight because you panic. And also talk about just precision. I think if I had to describe Leon with one word, is precision. Everything he throws is intentional. He rarely misses, and he also controls the fight anywhere he goes. He's also a great grappler and great wrestler. I mean, he damn near submitted Kamaru in the first round. I forget which fight it was though. Was it the first one or the second one? I forgot, but it's probably the second one. He damn near submitted Kamaru, which Kamaru is also a great wrestler, bro. Fucked up knees, but a great wrestler. And then I forgot how many takedowns he had against Colby. But the dude is fantastic. It doesn't matter where the fight goes. So beating a guy like that is super tough. Super, super tough. Leon, however, does have more of the chances to finish the fight than Bilal, I would say. And again, if we're going back to my criteria of who has more tools to win the fight, in my opinion, Leon has more tools to win the fight. I think Leon is just is on point. He is on point. But again, it also depends what version we get, right? If we get the version of Leon that, fought Colby and fought Kamaru the second time, which is honestly all it is confidence. The skill is there, but if he has that confidence, he's fucking unstoppable. So I'm going to officially predict a Leon Edwards win by decision. I don't think this fight is going to end. If it does end early, I'm going to say Leon by submission because I do think he looks for that submission earlier in the fight. He goes for the takedown. He shoots always earlier in the fight, and he looks for your neck. So he could have some success with that against Bilal, where I kind of play the other side is that Bilal has been training with Khabib and those guys over there in their camp, which should hypothetically improve massively. It's a fucking fly in my room. It should. Oh my god, I didn't get it. It should improve massively. Sorry, guys. It should improve his grappling. I think it's just good to be over there with Khabib and Islam and all those guys. I think that it's a great opportunity, and I think that it just sharpens the iron even more. You know what I mean? I mean, there's really no other camp to be at. However, Bilal is also a dude that It's a little bit older and just a little bit of slower fighting. He would not necessarily go. Well, he's not older. He's 35. I thought he was closer to 40, but he's 35. Leon Edwards is 32, so he's a little bit younger. And like I said, Bilal does not necessarily look for the kill, right? However, if he would like to shut a lot of people's mouths and if he would like to prove a point, try to get Leon out of there early, man. Try to go for an early TKO or early submission or something, bro. Something. But if Bilal plays this game and he fights this fight the same way he's been fighting his whole career, I think it's going to do nothing for him. I think he's going to lose a decision and he's not going to gain any popularity with that. And I think that he will never, it sounds fucked up to say, but he will probably never get another title shot for a while. Especially when you got a lot of people in that division right now. You have fucking Shafkat, you have fucking Ian Gary. So that right now is a stacked division. I think it's by far the most stacked division in the entire UFC. When you read it top to bottom, they're all superstars. These are all well-known fighters. Some divisions you get down below and who the fuck is this guy, whatever. But this welterweight division is all known people, at least to UFC fighters. They might not be household names just yet, but they are known to most UFC fighters. I mean, look at this. Kevin Holland, Vicente Luque, Michael Venom Page, Neil Magny, Joaquin Buckley, Jeff Neal, Wonderboy, Sean Brady, Ian Gary, Gilbert, JDM, Colby, Shafkat, Bilal, Kamaru, and Leon. I mean, I think this division is more stacked than lightweight. I mean, it's crazy to say because lightweight's always been a super stacked division. And lightweight, it's honestly kind of the same way. A lot of these guys are big names, former champs, so it's just, it's tough. Those two are definitely the best, I would say. But I don't think Bilal will get another shot. If he loses a boring fight against Leon, he won't get another shot. So I think what he has to do to shut some mouths is, if you're going to lose a fight, at least lose it in fashion. Go out there, try to go for the kill, and take chances, especially going against a champ, going for the belt. A lot of people say, if you're going for the belt, you have to take chances because it comes down to a split decision. The refs are probably going to favor the champ, especially if it's like especially if it's like a champ that has been defended the title a few times, which Leon has. So I think he has to take those chances, man. He has to, and he'll gain some respect. If he goes out there and, like I said, tries to go for the kill but loses, he'll gain the respect. You know what I mean? Or if he wins, holy fuck, then he'll get everybody respect. But I think that's what he has to do. He has to take some chances. He has to try and get Leon out of there early. As far as how, I don't think he's gonna beat Leon on the grappling department. I do really think he has to just be patient the first couple of minutes of the round, time Leon out, find your distance, and try to do something. But Leon, again, man, talk about, again, like I said, precision, being a technician, precision technician, and just doing everything right, not only offensively, but also defensively. He, I think, is great at that. I think he fucking does everything correct. So it's going to be tough to get him out of there, man, and get him out of there early. And like I said, Leon, I think if there's going to be a knockout, it'll probably be Leon. And also Leon has a submission opportunity. So yeah, man, Leon just has way more opportunities to win, way more tools to win. And again, if you remember, that's how I make predictions. It's who has more tools to win. It probably increases your odds. Doesn't matter though, because it's MMA, anything could happen. So I think my official prediction is going to be Leon Edwards, either by knockout. No. Let me. I'm not gonna make it broad. For you guys. I'm gonna make it specific. I'm gonna say Leon Edwards by second round submission. There you go. That is my predictions for all of them. So we have Leon by submission, second round. We have Tom Aspinall by TKO, second round, TKO or KO, whatever, second round. And then we have Paddy Pimblett. What did I say? I forgot what I said. I think I said submission, or I forgot what I said already. Go back and watch. I don't know. But I have Paddy Pimblett. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in into another episode of the MMA show. I'm your boy, Hagar Gonzalez. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button if you want to stay tuned. I'm going to talk about after the fights and what went down and what's next for these guys. So shout out and peace.